Okay, if you've been to my channel before, you'll know that I like sound and sound of all different sorts. So when I saw this thing at an auction sale, I decided that I had to have it to see how they wired it and what they did to it. So I bought it for like 27 bucks and brought it home and plugged it in. I'll show you a little bit more of the design of this later, but for now we'll just talk about what this unit is. And I picked it up, I think, for like $27. 24 bucks maybe, something like that. It's got a deck in the top, a deck in the bottom, and I just had to see what they had going on. Two speakers on the side, as you can see. So I brought it home, plugged it in. It had two wires coming out of the back, and it looked like 12 volt. Pulled it apart. Yeah, hooked up for 12 volts. I put it on a power supply, and nothing. So then I got looking further. None of the switches were hooked up. There's two switches here in the back, and wires were hanging all over the place, and I just was baffled. So we're gonna put this in a different spot. I've got a lot of projects that I want to do, and summer is getting short. So if I don't get this done now, then I'm probably not gonna do it, and I want to get a bunch of other stuff done. So we're gonna start with this, and I gotta say, whoever built it was a very good carpenter. They had some very good cabinetry skills. But once I got inside the box, they didn't know how to wire anything. So on that side, I gotta say, it's hot as heck today. You gotta bear with me. And somehow I managed to burn my head in a weird shape, even though I was wearing a non-transparent hat. So let's get this into a different spot and crack it open, and I can go through a little bit more of what I found and a little problem if you might ever run into running two decks in the same set of speakers, what you can probably do to get past that little hurdle. Okay, so now here you can see the back of the box, and you're just gonna have to put up with some lighting issues. I'm not really set up to do this, and it was the first time that I've shot a video like this, so hopefully we get better at this. The first thing we're gonna want to do here is take apart the screws. So let's get at her. Okay, screws are out. Here's the back of the box. So now, when I first purchased this, these switches here were not hooked up, and it only had one set of wires going to the back. So how I hooked it up now is two wires. So I have a small transformer here that's running at 15 volts, and then just a positive negative wire going in here. So basically what I planned on doing was, if you want, you can run this wire to a 12 volt battery source, such as directly to your car battery, or I was thinking of putting a cigarette plug on it and be able to plug it into your cigarette lighter and play music. So the problem that I got when I finally got these head units working was that when I put both of the speaker wires onto the same speaker, it wouldn't work. And I didn't know what was going on at the time, but then I finally realized that when you put two amplifiers together going to the same speaker, no matter, even if the one amplifier is shut off, for some reason it cancels it out and it won't allow the speaker to play. Now, if somebody knows why that is, you can let me know in the comments below, and that'll help me out. But I figured it out nonetheless that it was happening. So now I had to order a bunch of parts. And I ordered two of these 8 PDD switches. So now, if you've ever been familiar with a speaker selector, it's where you have a single amplifier running multiple sets of speakers and just a switch where you turn it and it'll play the other set of speakers. Well, this is gonna kind of work in reverse. So I'll take this out here. And instead of it running two sets of speakers, what we're gonna do is, on our center line, we're gonna put our speakers, and on the outside ones, we're gonna put amplifiers. So then that switch will stop the two amplifiers from grounding each other out. And that should work. I also bought two of these banks here. which I'm only going to need one. So I have a spare. Because there was already 2 speakers on this box and each amplifier has 4 channels, I thought it would be kind of nice to utilize all 4 channels. So I'll be hooking up one of these terminals inside of here so that you can hook up a satellite pair of speakers. Now, I also bought this switch here, just an on-off switch. And that is going to be used for the antenna. Because there's no antenna, I tried to use the radio and no sound come out, just a bunch of static. So I went to a scrapyard and got a power antenna out of an old, I don't know, can't remember what it was, maybe an old Buick, doesn't matter. But I got one and I'm gonna try and put it on the back when we're done. And I'm gonna clean up some of this wiring. So let's get at it. So I spent a lot of time with this previously and made this cheat sheet of where all the wires run to which speaker. So front and the back and right and left. So I have all that information wrote down on a piece of paper that took me quite a while to figure out because I couldn't find a wiring diagram for these. One of them is out of an old Chrysler. It says Chrysler Corporation right on top of the deck. And the other one is Panasonic. I found that one, that's pretty easy. But now I'm gonna cut some speaker wire. Actually, now on second thought, I think I'm going to pre-drill the holes and get the switches mounted into where I want so that I know how long I'm going to run the speaker wire. So that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, now that I have the switches in, I forgot to mention how I had the power set up right now. Like I said, I have it just on a 12-volt supply that you can run to your car battery or otherwise. And I have a transformer that is running from AC power to DC power. So how I got it to remember is like AC DC. So top is AC power, which is still DC power, but it makes me think plugging it into the wall is like AC. And then down is DC, which is the other one that you would put into your car. So now I had to run the switches on the inside on a bit of an angle so that the on-off was actually straight on the back of the box. So inside it'll be crooked and it'll probably still drive me nuts, but on the outside of the box it is fairly straight. So let's get some wire on for the speakers. Okay, so I decided to run these switches here, positive, negative, positive, negative. And the reason I come up with that is because my speaker connector that I'm going to put on the back for the rears or the satellite speakers is positive, negative from right to left. So I have a bunch of these little crimp-on terminals which are just the right size to fit the screws. And that's what I'm going to crimp on. So I'm going to crimp all these on, and they're all going to be red, but I'll pay attention to what the wires are so I know which ones are the positive side and which are the negative side. I'm going to start with the top deck, and I'm going to start with the front speakers. They're marked on the back of this deck. I believe this was a Panasonic deck. So I'm going to have to clip some of these, make them a little shorter. If you're enjoying the sound of this video, the microphone that I'm using is a Boya BY-M1. And I just picked this up a little while ago and I did a short review on it. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check that out. Okay, so I don't bore you to death crimping all these on, I will cut scene, and when I come back, hopefully all of them are crimped on. Okay, I didn't get them all crimped on, so I gotta be kind of careful here. When I get to these ones, the front channel on the bottom deck, they're not marked really well and they're not color coded very well, so I'm just going to crimp on the connectors on those. I'm gonna stick them on this block and I'm gonna have it set up so that I don't get them mixed up. Okay, our bottom deck is just about hooked up on the front channel. I just have this last screw to go in. Okay, so now the bottom deck is all hooked up. I didn't run any extra long speaker wire because I just unplugged the back here, and then I can plug it back in when I go to put it together. And that'll give me a little bit more room to work with. I think I'll probably end up, yep, I'll unclip this harness too, and then when I go to put it back together, I'll just clip all three harnesses back together, and that'll give me a little bit more room to work with, and I won't have to splice any speaker wire into there. This is starting to look like quite the mess, but oh well, hopefully the next one I do, which is taking a old single tower speaker that doesn't have its partner anymore and turning it into a Bluetooth powered speaker. So stay tuned for that. Okay, so you can see the one switch is done. That is our top and bottom deck with our speakers that are attached to the unit. So now I will finish doing the other side. Okay, so all of the amplifier connections are hooked up for the rear channels. And now I'm going to cut and put in our speaker terminal for the rear channels, or our satellite speakers, and then we'll get that on the way. Yikes. What a mess. Okay, so one of the last things we're gonna do here is put an antenna on this thing. And I have this button that I don't have a wiring diagram for, but it supposedly lights up, turns on, turns off. So I'm gonna try and figure that out, and then find a place to put it through the box, put the wires on it, run it through all at once so that I don't have to work too much in there. That looks way too thick. Oh well. Give her a shot. So yes, after further inspection, it is too thick of wood to put the nut on the back. So it won't be getting that. And when I'm done, I guess I will just glue it in. We're almost ready for a test run. It took me quite a bit of trial and error to get the antenna to work. Because I didn't have a wiring diagram for the button, I went online and found one. It was fairly straightforward. I hooked the button up the way that the diagram showed, and I wanted the button to work. When I pushed it in, the antenna would come up. Because this button has two ways of working. It is a common open or a common closed. So I wired it all up and it wouldn't work. And I was like, well, I must have messed something up in the wiring. So I went and got the old handy dandy trusty multimeter and hooked it all up, and I was like, well, no, this should be working. And then I tested the common close side and it was working. So then I tested the open side and it was not working. So I just switched it around, and now the button's working the exact opposite, and that spent about 2 hours trying to figure that out probably. And it's all thanks to a cheap Chinese button which was faulty from factory. But on the other side, I can still use it, and the LED works now. It's just not the way I wanted it, and it took a bunch of my time. Don't cheap out on buttons, I guess. I'm going to seal this up pretty quick here. I've got the antenna ran inside here, so only the top head unit will have a antenna. I had to turn these around because, of course, I had the switches backwards from the way I wanted it. So I have this set up. Before I told you, AC up, DC down, even though it's DC both ways, it's just how I remember it. And then the top deck is up, the bottom deck is down, and it'll be the same for these switches now. So this is the front speakers or the speakers that are attached to it, and these will be the rear speakers or satellite speakers that are running through this here. Let's get this sealed up. Okay, so I got it sealed up and the antenna is on. I know it kind of looks like a horse's butt on there, but nevertheless, it has an antenna, which is a power antenna, and it's working. So now I got to find some satellite speakers and we'll try this thing out. All right, time for a test. Now I'm unsure why you would want to do something like this, having two decks in the same unit. And the only thing I could think of is this bottom one has a cassette player in it. And I thought, okay, well maybe the CD player in that one doesn't work, and the CD player in that one does work. But when I tested it, it all works. So the CD player and the cassette tape works in the bottom one. The CD player works in the top one. This would be way easier if you just used one head unit. You wouldn't need those 8 PDT switches, and life would be a lot easier, especially when you can craft a box like that. It's a pretty decent looking box. So now I found those speakers laying around and have them wired in the back. So Try and get the whole thing in shot here. Pretty hard. But I will turn the switch on. So up for my plug-in power, and we're gonna go down for the bottom deck. Spit a cassette tape out there. I'm gonna go up on the switch. It'll turn the top deck on. And then we'll try the satellite speakers first. I'll turn the switch to the top position. And we'll see if we can get some static. Oh yeah, I forgot the best part. The antenna. So I push this button and up comes the antenna. LED light is on. We got static. It's working through both top speakers. And there's some radio music. I will turn on the side speakers. Flip the other switch up. And now I'll go to a different radio station just because I don't want to get copyright strike. So we'll just turn it up for a second. And you can hear it's working. Push this button and the antenna comes back down. Life is grand. I don't know how these speakers on the top are going to work, but I'll try them out for a while. They're 8 ohm. Of course, the head units are 4 ohm. So now I have 2 4 ohm speakers and 2 8 ohm speakers. I can run either set that I want at the same time or separately, so try it out for a while. So I promised my friend when this project was done that it could sit at his shop. And he's the owner of White Line Racing, and I thought I'd make him this plug.
White Line Racing. It's not about miles per gallon, it's about smiles per gallon.
So if you're a local and you know us, then head down there. You can see what you think of the unit, what it sounds like, and let me know in the comments below. This video took a lot longer to make, and I hope you will bear with me through all of my trial and error. I tried to speed it up as much as possible. And thanks for watching, and have a great day.